All right, Dakota, here we are for the next Transforming Cities Live. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is an honor, a privilege. I'm excited to learn with everybody else today on this one. I always like to start with a few introductory notes on these. So, first things first, for anyone new watching, please check out transformingcities.io. That's where we send out a weekly update. We cover CRE, marketing topics, upcoming guests for the Transforming Cities podcast, and live events. Listen and watch on any of your favorite podcast listening apps. Apple, Spotify are usually the two most popular, but YouTube is also gaining in popularity. And if you know a great guest for any of the viewers out there, send them my way. Shoot me a message, DM, email. I'd love to hear about them and what they're up to. This is brought to you by my company, Authentic. We're a premier brand and marketing partner in the real estate multifamily space. So we work with a lot of great developments and owner operator partners. So we're really excited to make new introductions on that front as well. You can learn more about our work and what we're up to at authenticff.com. So today's live, I'm excited to jump in. I was telling Dakota before we jumped in, I know enough to be dangerous about a lot of things, but I don't know a ton about submarkets, affordability, and so I'm excited to dive into this with Dakota today. So the way that we'll run this live today is Dakota's going to kick us off with a little bit of a brief intro about himself, his history. We'll get into the submarket growth topic area, segue into affordability, and then we'll end with some marketing dynamics that relate to these topics towards the end. We always like to leave enough time for Q&A at the end as well. So remember, if you're listening or you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube, feel free to shoot in your comments or questions during the discussion. And at the end, we'll flash those up on screen and we'll make sure that we can get to as many of those questions as possible. So without further ado, Dakota, thank you again for joining us today. I would like to just kind of hand the mic over to you. I see you have it positioned perfectly just in front of your face there. So I think you're ready to go. Tell the audience kind of your background, how you cut your teeth, and what you do at iTex today.
Hi, my name is Dakota Courville. I'm director here at iTex. iTex, is a vertically integrated property management, construction, and development firm. My role here is I lead one of the development teams. My team primarily works in both affordable and market rate plays concerning build for rent and then rehabs using the 9 and 4% tax credit. I've been here since 2011 when I was about 18, 19. So, 31 now, been here a while, went to Lamar, got my finance and economics degree. And I'm so excited to talk to you about some of my passions, affordability and demographics.
I love it. Yeah. Dakota, whenever we have conversations about this stuff, you're always blowing my mind with knowledge and experience. So I'm excited to jump into that today. Let's just kick things off with submarket growth. I think this is a really interesting topic area, especially given the changes once COVID hit and sort of post-pandemic era. I want to start with this figure. This is something that we were chatting about over the last week. And I'm not going to pretend to be the guy who's going to explain this. So why don't you take over here and kind of tell us what we're looking at?
Yeah. So, one of the major shifts we saw during the pandemic and a little bit pre-pandemic is urban centers were becoming unaffordable and people were moving out to the suburbs. Suburbs generally have been defined as, relatively inexpensive, sprawl, XYZ. What this chart shows is, New York County and then the neighboring areas around it, basically, all the people were moving out of those urban areas and showing the loss of basically, the general population. What's interesting is Dallas County, lost some population, but Collins County, which is a little bit north of the area, actually gained, right? So, this is the shift that we're seeing in many of the markets. And, obviously it was exacerbated because it was COVID. We all went home. We all realized we hated our tiny apartments, right? So then we're like, oh, now it's a good time to get a larger home or move out to the suburbs because I'm not tied down to needing to commute to my job that's right around the corner, So, it's very interesting. This dynamic is now we're coming out of the pandemic and a lot of us have migrated to those suburban markets. And now we're trying to say, okay, well now, we're a shift back to work. What does that look like in the full demographic shift?
Yeah, and let's kind of dive into some of those topic areas. So created this slide here just to have a few prompts in front of us and to sort of help out with the viewers. But this idea of moving from urban areas to the suburbs during COVID and through COVID. So this idea of submarkets growing and blossoming because of that. One of those reasons being COVID. I won't say the only reason, but hit on some of the reasons why people were moving away from larger metropolitan areas during that time, and I guess it's continued now through 2023.
Well, we're having a shifting demographics right now, right? Where baby boomers are kind of aging out. All of our bosses are in the Gen, or a Gen X factor. So millennials now have become major stakeholders. We're aging, we're becoming older. As a 31-year-old millennial, I can say that now. We're getting older and we're needing more space, right? And we're also looking at our budget. Well, houses right now, for instance, in Texas, homes appreciated 41% between 2020 Q3 and 2022 Q3. So we really can't afford houses. So now we're going to be moving to the suburbs and renting, right? And we don't have to drive 30 to 40 minutes away for our jobs now. We can just sit in our spacious apartment, or if we're lucky enough to own a home, now we can have all those creature comforts and more space without having to have the, urban dynamics of, everyone's on top of each other, fighting traffic, XYZ.
And tell me a little bit more about the remote work piece, because our company Authentic has been remote since the start, which I know is a little bit unusual. But now that remote work is such a buzzword and hybrid work, et cetera, there's been this sort of challenge, I guess, to the workplace with regards to how many groups are supporting full-on remote work versus how many are supporting hybrid or a few days in the office a week versus a few days at home during the week. Do you see that being a major shift or a major metric with regards to this shift that will continue into the future? Like more remote work means more of this migration to the suburbs?
Well, first off, I think it's a talent situation. If all things being equal, you would pay for a really good talented person in California if you're in Boise, Idaho, and they don't want to move out of, California. So I do think that it will continue, but, a lot of companies are facing where, we have real estate, we have office space, we pay rent every month for that office space. Now we have this, large expansive of office space, and now it's empty. So what do we do? Hybrid workplace. Have people come in, have people come out. So I think as the years transgress, you will keep seeing this hybrid work go on. Now, there's a looming recession coming, so I'm not sure if the bottom's going to drop out and it changes the demographics of the working class. But I really do think that hybrid is going to maintain throughout the industry because, we've been in office spaces for the last 70 years. And then magically one day we woke up, there's COVID, we're not going back to the offices. I really think there's a social dynamic that we're missing too. Sharing conversations, thought processes, and things like that on the computer, it just doesn't work. You need to be in an office, have osmosis, be able to be creative. So I really think the companies that will succeed in the future are going to be the ones that really adopt a stringent, you have to be at the office to make things work.
Interesting. If anyone's watching that has a hot take there, I'd be curious if there's any other thoughts or questions related to remote work and sort of the migration to the outer suburbs or submarkets. I want to flip over to this slide because I know that we talked about this briefly before jumping on today, and it's an interesting kind of look at some of the population changes across the country. Again, I'm not going to play numbers guy and analyst on this call, so sorry to disappoint anyone. But Dakota, jump in and kind of walk us through what we're seeing here and how this relates to some of the submarket changes.
So all the areas in blue, let's take Houston for example. I'm in Houston right now. The urban core of Houston, kind of has a weird, obelisk shape. But if you see all the areas around it is really dark blue. That's because they've grown. They've had more migration because people living in, like, for example, a couple of years ago, me and my wife were thinking about moving to the burbs, right? And it was simply because it was cheaper and the commute wasn't going to be that bad. So a lot of people are making those decisions of, okay, I want better schools. I don't want to be around a lot of people. I want the same amenities and I want more space. So you're seeing that it's called the donut effect, where everything's kind of being built out kind of like a donut surrounding the urban core and ex-urban areas.
I think that's really interesting. My wife and I and our young son did something very similar last fall. We moved from Denver. I'd been in Denver for 16 years, and then we decided to move to the Colorado Springs area because of those very reasons. Having a little bit more space, a little bit more, kid friendly, better schools. Maybe all of the amenities weren't, top notch or what we kind of got used to in Denver, but I think a lot of the other things check the boxes, and that speaks to this bullet point about quality of life. And I think that going back to your point about some of that migration and remote work and sort of family dynamic shifting, as well as kind of at a higher level, sort of cultural dynamics across the U.S. What are the downsides, though, that might come from some of these changes? I mean, I think that's becoming more, that's bubbling up more to the surface these days. A little bit like you mentioned, hey, everyone's not in the office anymore. It's harder to get work done. Communication can be more difficult. I know that this is more of a housing and a development topic, but feel free to take that in any direction from a downsides perspective that you're seeing.
Well, I would say ultimately it is a societal conversation, but I mean, we're building something for society, right? I mean, real estate is in essence a basic need, right? So those effects have huge changes in the real estate market. I would say it's interesting to see that the suburban markets of 10 years ago look a lot different than now. Uh, just look at what 2010 used to look like. It was, primarily white. It was primarily very homologous. Now it's becoming more ethnic. It's becoming more urban. It's just to say better words, where you have a lot of different cultures coming in. You have different masses of different people, income ranges, and things of that nature. So, in the suburban markets, I really think that it's becoming a town within a town or cities within cities. You're taking a little piece of the urban areas and we're seeing it move into the suburban areas where it has the look, it has the feel of a broader urban area that has all the cultural amenities. But then, it's basically in a smaller kind of fragmented area.
Yeah. Let's use this project highlight the Aronson as a way to sort of talk about some of that stuff. This is a project that, full disclosure, we were able to get to partner with you on. So we're stoked to see this up in front of a few more faces. But the Aronson is Fayetteville, Arkansas. So you don't usually think of Fayetteville, Arkansas as sort of like the big booming metro area. But I think this is a good dovetail into what you're speaking to there. So talk to us a little bit about the Aronson and what this project is all about.
Well, full disclosure, because I know the development partners on are probably listening to this. I am very humbled and gracious to be able to lead this project and help these guys to be able to develop it. It's a brainchild of Dave Anderson and Chris Ackberry. When they first told me, "Hey, I need you to look at this market," my first instinct was Arkansas, fiddle, what? And then we started looking into it, and it really was shocking. Where you have it's Austin. I know that a lot of people who are probably on this call are like shocked that I said that, but this project is a transformational project where it's showing all the different demographic changes that we're seeing, where we're utilizing build for rent communities, which will be houses that have garages and things of that nature that have that effect of a single family home, but it'll be for rent. But also connected to it, we're providing those cultural amenities of an Alamo Draft House, a drive-in movie theater, all of these things. This is just not a project that you would think is going to land in Arkansas, much less Fayetteville, Arkansas. And what's driving this is the demographics, where you have solid jobs, you have great schools, you have cultural amenities such as crystal bridges, all of the different things that have been done by the major industrial players in that market. And really, it's just a transformable project, which really is very exciting to work on.
Yeah, and this is another quick shout out. Mike mentions first time he's heard the phrase "the donut effect." Makes total sense. I hadn't heard that either. That's really interesting. The Aronson is kind of fun for me too, because I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, of all places, and so we would always travel down to Northwest Arkansas for basketball camps and stuff like that. So I never, in my head, picked up on the idea that something like the Aronson would make sense there. But given the donut effect and some of the changes with submarket growth, makes perfect sense today. So really cool project. Again, it's called the Aronson, just done in the early stages of sort of releasing some information about it. I think it was Variety put out a great article about it a few weeks ago too. So if anyone's interested, they can search that as well. Just to keep us moving here, I know that we want to be cognizant of everyone's time. Let's jump into the affordability topic, because this is a big one, and one that you're really passionate about, Dakota. So let's kind of start at the top with regards to let's call myself someone who has no idea what affordability is. Tell me at the highest levels, like, what is the sort of affordability issue? What does affordability mean right now when it comes to real estate and sort of the development industry at large?
So just, in terms of math and percentages, affordability has always been defined as the average rent being 30% of the annual income or less. So, if you take whatever you make a year, times it by 30, divide that by 12, that's how much you should be paying. And the rest is going to go for your car, XYZ, basic living. One of the things that we're seeing right now, and, this is an example that I'll use, is that the average rent in Austin, Texas right now is $2,300. If you take that, that means you'd have to make about $92,000 a year to live comfortably. And, that means being able to have food, whatever you want to do. Right now, the median income is $80,000. So what the affordability crisis really is, or what affordability is now, is people are spending more money on rent, which means they have to make decisions. Maybe they're moving from HEB to Aldi's. Maybe they're not getting the new car. Maybe they're getting an older car. But one of the biggest impacts that we're seeing right now is, 59% of Americans are currently at risk of being homeless. What that means is they're one paycheck away or one life event happening where they're out on the street. So that's kind of what kind of transforms into the crisis, is that people are kind of on that teetering edge of about to be in a very hard place for our society.
And one of the things that we were talking to is the outpacing of cost to own, rent in 2023 as it relates to the pacing of salaries, job growth, et cetera. How do you view that as someone in the development space when you're looking at a new project that's an affordable project? What are the things that you are considering when it comes to policy making or working with local leadership in a specific area? How does that come into play when you're sort of thinking through the literal binary numbers of a new project like that?
Well, the main mission of ITEX is everyone deserves the same standard of housing, no matter if they are, the CEO or the janitor. Everyone deserves the basic, life, necessities, which is quality housing. When looking at a project, we as ITEX always look at, is it a great area? Is it a great market? That's it. I mean, we look at the same dynamics as you would if it wasn't affordable, because we want to build at the same places where traditional market rate developers would come in and say, oh, let's put in a really beautiful project because we're going to be doing that the same way.
Yeah. And there's the bullet point on here, number 4, with regards to educating the public, prospects, and residents. I'm curious how that plays out. Like, is it a common thing to have the public be educated in a specific way, sort of like by the book, templated approach? Does that exist? Or when this is something that you're considering, does it need to become an a la carte, customized approach to, let's say Fayetteville, for example, or another small submarket across the country? Are you having to approach that kind of with fresh eyes and new ideas every time, or is there a specific way to do that?
In my opinion, is that when you say affordable into the ethos, people immediately start thinking of Section 8, housing, it's so macabre, and they just get down to the very base level of it. When I think of affordable housing, I think of first-time teachers, first-time cops, first-time firefighters who are making under $45,000, $55,000, right? When we're approaching people and talking about if we're doing a 9% or 4% program in Texas, we try to educate them of, affordable housing does not mean crime. Affordable housing doesn't mean there's going to be drugs. There's going to be your property's going to lose value. What it means is we're getting the people of the workforce, your baristas, your Uber driver, they'll be able to make a living, and ultimately upward mobility comes in effect, right? Because
Right.
now they're transitioning from a 60% AMI to 80% AMI to 100% AMI. And that's what true upward mobility is. And those are the
Mhm.
kind of the beauties of the programs that are currently being utilized to build affordable housing. But again, there is a lot of NIMBYism. I mean, NIMBYism is a very impactful word that we always face when, developing something is, what is the community going to think? Are they going to show up with pitchforks? Are they going to show up with, hands open? And most of the time it's pitchforks because of the way that affordable housing is viewed upon in the communities we serve.
That just made me think about the differences between, or here's the question: what are the differences between affordable housing and workforce housing? Because I think, you described the baristas, the first time firefighters, etc. I feel like that in my mind can often fit into this idea of workforce housing. But are they the same thing? Can they be interchangeable? What is your experience with just the lingo when it comes to these things?
So developers are really creative, and we like to make up words and not have a meaning behind the words. So what I'm going to say is affordable housing to me is AMI bands, average median income bands, where you have 100% median rent, and then below that you have a cascading percentage, right? Where 80% means you make between 60% AMI and 80% AMI, and generally if you make below 60% AMI, you're on the lower economic scale. So, you can think about it kind of like 100% is going to be, 90,000. The other is going to be 60,000. Everything else below is going to be a little bit less money. So it's a full range of, the working class. So in
Right.
workforce, affordable housing is workforce housing, right? Because percent program or 4% program, light tech program, you're paying your rent, right? It's lower, but you are paying those rents. It's not like the 100% of your rents are being subsidized with the government or anything like that nature. So workforce and affordable to me are almost the same thing, but it's just kind of like going back to how we approach it. If you say workforce, it gets a little bit more comfortable in the nomenclature, because when you say affordable, that's such a dirty word. I like to use the word attainable housing, because these are something that people can attain and live a life where they have quality housing and upward mobility.
Super interesting. Yeah, the differences in air quotes, right, between affordable, attainable, and workforce. I'm curious if any viewers have come across any similar sort of confusion or issues with the lingo there. But I digress. I want to get to these last two questions, which are huge questions, I know. So like, let's a, 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 approach them as you will, Dakota. But with regards to affordability, what are we doing wrong, and what are we doing right? Because I think that there's probably a mixed bag of opinions about this topic, and it's probably honestly also dependent on where you are in the country. But from your perspective, with the projects that you've been working on, and if anything's hyper local to Houston too, feel free to note that. But right and wrong, what have you been seeing?
I wouldn't say what we're doing wrong. I would just say what we could do better, right?
Okay.
One of the things that I think we could do better, the University of Texas LBJ, sorry, I just had a study where they were talking about, what can we do in Texas to build more affordable housing? And it comes in terms of, utilizing land better, creating more programs to allow developers to get through the city side for permits a lot faster. We're developers are out there building housing. It's just the speed that we need it is so slow because of all the different regulatory agencies that we work with, because we want to make sure it's built safely and things of that nature, that sometimes it seems like we're not building enough. If you really unleash the magnitude of all the developers out there, you can get the 4 million of houses that we need by 2020, 2035 to keep up with the current demand that we need. So
Mhm.
I really would say what we're doing wrong is just, I think you could always do something better, and we could always do things faster.
What is something that stands out that is being done right or that you've seen worked really well? Because you said you began at iTex quite a while ago, a decade ago. And I'm sure over those years that you've been working with the team, you've noticed quite a few things that could be done better. But does anything stand out as something that is being done really well right now?
Right now what's being done well is, we're still continuing to hold ourselves up to a higher bar. And one of the most impactful things that I've seen is the coming into mixed use housing. What I've used to see is a project would be 100% light tag. Now you're seeing where developments will be some market rate, some low income housing, maybe retail is involved, and it's really transforming areas where you can have that mix of workforce, a mix of affordable, you have cultural amenities. So those are the things that we're really doing right, where we're trying to have the mindset of a market rate development company, but we're also developing for the next generation of houses, because the affordability demographics have also changed, right?
Mm.
Like I talked about, years ago, when you said affordable housing, you thought of like homeless people, things like that. When I say affordable now, I'm thinking about my barista that got me my coffee this morning, right? Like
Mhm.
those are the people we're trying to provide housing to.
Let's pivot into marketing dynamics because I believe that dovetails really nicely into where you just ended there. I always like to put in a field of dreams photo. Like whenever the opportunity presents itself, I want to insert a field of dreams photo or image or video or GIF. If you followed me at all for the last year or so, I sprinkle these in here and there, but it's important because one of the big points that you like to make, Dakota, is that the idea of field of dreams comes into play with development, and that if you build it and it's cheap, people will live there. And that was sort of like the pre-pandemic mindset when it came to new developments. But things are changing, and there's a definite dynamic shift when it comes to marketing in the development space these days. I love talking about this. It's a huge part of what we do at Authentic, but I know that you have your own unique flavor about this. So, at a high level, what is it about marketing today that matters so much to you with what you're seeing on the projects that you're working on?
As somebody who is a, finance egghead, marketing to me always was just kind of like, oh, you put some banners out there and you do a good job and people come, right? We've really shifted, I think the latest stats is almost 90% of Americans have access to the internet, right? So, I mean, they're getting marketed all day long. And when they see apartments, they want that same treatment of lead generation of, do you like this apartment? What does it look like? One of the best things that John Gonzalez, our SVP of marketing, has done in our company is, our lead generation for our affordable assets look almost the same as our market rate assets, where we're marketing and we're getting those out there where we say, come look at live here, based off your certain AMI range. One of the things years ago that I thought, was just put some curb appeal out and people will drive by and they will get into the units. The world's changed. I mean, right now you're in Colorado, I'm in Houston. We're having a full blown conversation. We have people from all around the world. Technology has grown. So why not marketing? Marketing needs to grow as well, and how we transform these projects to get people into the heads and beds.
Yeah. The last point here, which is the key takeaway, so I'm going to spill the beans here. I know everyone can read, but I love this idea that everyone needs to be marketed to today, because it's no longer just about market rate or luxury, apartments being marketed to sort of like the upper class, so to speak, or kind of the mid to high income earners. I think the idea that everyone has this expectation today that they also deserve to be marketed to, and of course they do, is a game changer. I know that iTex does a lot of stuff around that, as you mentioned with John's work. One of the interesting things that just came to mind about this is the education around affordability and AMI, and kind of where would I fall in that spectrum. And I think some of the stuff that you're doing at iTex is worth mentioning with regards to chatbots and reliance on some AI technology today. So if someone comes to one of those websites, they can actually start to get some information back from AI. Walk us through what that looks like. I know this is a little off script, Dakota, but if you wouldn't mind indulging me, I know that there's some cool stuff happening there, and you're one of the very few development companies that I've been seeing do this. And when it relates into this topic about affordability and AI. I'm gonna bite on that and ask you what that's all about.
Well, we're lucky at iTex that our leadership, Chris Ackberry, is always trying to challenge us to utilize technology to be faster, smarter. When AI came out, everyone was using it for all kind of stuff. I would say 80% of what I'm presenting today was Chat GPT. I wrote my notes and it summarized it for me very pretty. And those are some of the things that we're doing here at iTex. One of the coolest things that John did is, he took, very complex compliance, low income housing, HUD rules, and he's made it, where it's digestible in a, chat bot. These are things that are going to bring us to the next level, because we're always about surrounding people with the right tools to be able to do more work and be able to be more successful in their daily lives.
As we start to wrap up here, I'm thinking ahead to Q&A. So if any listeners have any questions they want to throw out there, feel free to do that. We'll make sure to get to those towards the end here. One more takeaway from you, if you don't mind, Dakota, when it comes to marketing dynamics. Do you see any major shifts in the future? Let's say the next 2 years. What's going to be the biggest change in your mind with regards to how we're marketing these properties, be it affordable or market or luxury, to these future renters? Is it reliance on AI and sort of automation? Is it something else? Is it meeting them where they are? What are some key themes, or maybe a key theme that you see taking place that you think is going to continue into the coming years?
I think information will continue to just be faster and more digestible. It's the same thing with marketing. It's going to be automated. It's going to be real time. It's going to be a living, breathing animal because you have an AI neural network that is able to digest what your property needs are on a real time basis, almost like a leasing or a marketing director would, right? So they would basically be, hey, I see your rent's going down or your occupancy is going down. I'm going to push out some new lead generation. This is the effect. So I think really it's going to be what we are seeing now, but the information will be better and the information will be a lot faster.
Yeah. I love it. I love talking about this stuff with you, Dakota. Sub markets are so niche, but they're so important today, obviously. And I think that you're sort of talking about this while many others are not. Affordability, obviously, a huge topic across the country now as well. I wanna thank you again for joining me today. If any of the viewers want to get in touch with Dakota, go check out iTex's website. Have it noted here. You can also shoot Dakota an email as well. I have that listed here. If anyone has additional questions, feel free to fire them our way now, and we'll jump in. We have one more plug here for Transforming Cities. If you want to just get more information about this platform and what we're doing, transformingcities.io. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email, chris@authenticff.com. Matthew asks, so how do we educate others on these differences with regards to affordability language? He says that he agrees, but it's difficult to relay the message on affordability. So I guess high level, in conversation with others and in educating others, how do we talk about those differences?
It really comes down to infographics. And this is where the marketing aspect becomes very important, where you have to demystify affordable housing. What is affordable housing? What people are we serving? The best example that we've seen is, the barista, the cop, the first time nurse, showing what their wages are, showing what the current rates are on, average median rent, and letting people know, like, your neighbors, your cousin, your sister, whatever, these are the people that we're marketing to. And, it's just really about demystifying overall effects of what people think of affordable housing to be.
One of the other questions that that was sent to me before the call had to do with, as a professional, getting educated on some of these topics that you referred to today: submarkets, affordability. One of the biggest questions I see in the development space is, hey, if I'm not going to go back to school for a master's degree in this stuff, where do I get more information? Is there a group or a professional organization or something that can get me educated on these topics? Does anything stand out for you that would be helpful for someone who's looking to get some more information in these topics?
I would say be hungry for all information. If when I teach people modeling, I always tell them, push it to its limits until you break it, because that's when you'll learn how to get things done. The internet, I'll be honest, most of my real estate knowledge came from TikTok. Just going over COVID, different, transformations that I was seeing. So, reading, there's multiple groups out there, ventures in real estate, but really it's just about being in the business, learning what's happening and how things are transforming. I'm very lucky that I get to see deals get done and I get to lead those projects. So I get to be on the forefront, but really, LinkedIn's been very good too, where I'm able to learn from quality people like you, right? Where, you're throwing out topics. So I would just say, if you're not wanting to do, but I don't have an MBA, right? So, if you don't want to do the MBA route, just stay teachable and always be hungry for more knowledge.
Love it. Yeah, beginner's mind all the way. I think that's a great message to end on. Dakota Courville, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure having you on the LinkedIn Live today. So if anyone is watching, again, Dakota Courville at iTex, feel free to reach out to him. He'd be happy to follow up with any additional questions.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thanks.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if anyone's interested in, any of our current developments, we are, actively, raising money and things of that nature. So, definitely would love to talk these topics to different people. So, definitely hit me up.
Alrighty. Thanks, Dakota.
All right. Thanks.